وأشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له وأشهد أن محمدا عبده ورسوله أما بعد. So last time we began with the fourth question. السؤال الرابع: ما قولكم في مسائل علو الله على الخلق واستوائه على العرش? What do you say about the highness of Allah above His creation and that He rose above the throne? We mentioned that the ulu of Allah, it has different types. علو ذات, علو القدر والصفات, and علو القهر. That Allah is the Most High in His essence. He Himself in His essence is the Most High, above all of the heavens and the earth, above all of the creation. Also, علو القدر والصفات, that Allah is the Most High in His attributes and in His station, that Allah is the Most High, the perfect attributes of perfection and beauty. So Allah is the Most High in that regard also. And thirdly, علو القهر, that Allah is the Most High in the sense that He conquers all, that He is in control of all. He has the might and the power and the majesty over everything. So when we say these three different types, then these are all aspects of the highness of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. الخلاصة أن العلو يتنوع إلى ثلاثة أنواع. That the highness of Allah, it is split up into three categories, three types. علو ذات, علو قدر, and علو قهر. ويجب أن نؤمن بذلك كله, and we must have Eemaan in all of that, that Allah is the Most High Himself in His essence, and Allah is the Most High in His perfect and beautiful names and attributes, and Allah is the Most High in His power and might and majesty over creation. وَبِأَنَّ اللَّهَ مُسْتَوٍ عَلَى عَرْشِهِ, and that we have Eemaan, Allah rose above His throne. Allah is above His throne, and the throne, as we said, it is the ceiling of all of creation. But some people, they say that Allah is everywhere. That Allah is everywhere. And that is their aqidah. But as we highlighted, that is an incorrect aqidah, to believe that Allah is fi kulli makan. They have some evidences that maybe indicate that Allah is in every place. So for example, they may quote the ayah, وَلَقَدْ خَلَقْنَا الْإِنسَانَ وَنَعْلَمُ مَا تُوَسْوِسُ بِهِ نَفْسُهُ وَنَحْنُ أَقْرَبُ إِلَيْهِ مِنْ حَبْلِ الْوَرِيدِ. This ayah they may use as an example to say that Allah is everywhere, because Allah tells us here that we are closer to Him than His jugular vein. We are closer to Him than His jugular vein. So this indicates Allah is everywhere, they say. But the reality of this is that it indicates Allah is everywhere in terms of His knowledge. That Allah sees everything, and hears everything and knows about everything, but not that He Himself is everywhere. We already spoke about that last time. If you say Allah is everywhere, then does that mean below you and at the side of you, equal to you? That cannot be right. Allah is above us, above the creation. So, one of the points we also mentioned last time was when people make dua, then where do they raise their hands towards? Every single time when you make dua, you raise your hands towards the skies. Even the people who say the aqidah is that Allah is everywhere, they believe Allah is everywhere, but when they make dua, they raise their hands up to the heavens. So that is the truth, that Allah is above. He is everywhere in knowledge. He knows everything, sees everything, hears everything. But He in Himself, in His essence, is above the creation. So then we move on to السؤال الخامس. ما قولكم في الرحمة والنزول إلى السماء الدنيا ونحوها. What is your statement regarding الرحمة, the mercy, والنزول إلى السماء الدنيا, and that Allah descends to the lowest heaven, the heaven of this earth? What do you say about the mercy of Allah and that Allah descends to the lowest heaven and other things that are similar to that? What do you say about that? He also goes on to say, Al-Jawab, نؤمن ونقر بكل ما وصف الله به نفسه. We believe and we acknowledge everything that Allah has described Himself with. Whatever Allah described Himself with, then we believe in that and we acknowledge that. من الرحمة والرضا والنزول والمجيء, from all of the different sifat, all of the attributes that Allah has mentioned about Himself, then we believe in them and we acknowledge them. So from the mercy of Allah and the pleasure of Allah and the descent of Allah and the coming of Allah, وبما وصفه به رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم على وجه لا يماثله فيه أحد من خلقه فإنه ليس كمثله شيء فكما أن لله ذاتا لا تشبهها الذوات فله صفات لا تشبهها الصفات. So we describe Allah with what He described Himself with and what the Messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam described Allah with, then all of that we believe in and we affirm and we acknowledge without making any comparisons between Allah and creation. And we spoke about that already before and we discussed it. Without making any comparison or resemblance between Allah and the creation. For indeed, لَيْسَ كَمِثْلِهِ شَيْءٍ, there is nothing like Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And so just like there is no essence, no other that which is like Allah, then similarly there are no other attributes of anything that are similar and comparable to Allah. فكما أن لله ذاتا لا تشبهها الذوات فله صفات لا تشبهها الصفات. Here الشيخ أحمد النجمي رحمه الله تعالى, in his sharh of this point, he said, أقول وصف الله نفسه بالرحمة. Allah attributed to himself this صفة of mercy. Allah described himself and attributed to himself this attribute of mercy. وَسَمَّى نَفْسَهُ رَحْمَانًا وَرَحِيمًا. And Allah named himself as being Ar-Rahman and Ar-Rahim from the names of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. وَأَخْبَرَ أَنَّ لَهُ مِئَةَ رَحْمَةٍ أَنزَلَ مِنْهَا وَاحِدَةً فبها يتراحم الناس وبها ترفع البهيمة حافرها عن ولدها وأبقى 99 رحمة يرحم بها عباده المؤمنين يوم القيامة. It is mentioned in the hadith أخرجه البخاري that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, البخاري في كتاب الأدب باب جعل الله الرحمة في 100 جزء, that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentioned He has made His mercy into 100 parts. That Allah has made His mercy into 100 parts. Only one part of that 100 parts Allah sent down upon us. With that one part of the mercy, then we have mercy to each other. The animal has mercy to its child and does not stamp upon its child, removes its hooves away so that it doesn't stamp on the child. البهيمة ترفع حافرها عن ولدها. So all of that mercy that we experience now, then that is only one part from the 100 parts of the mercy that Allah made it into. And that is mentioned in a hadith in Al-Bukhari, كتاب الأدب باب جعل الله الرحمة في 100 جزء, والإمام مسلم في كتاب التوبة باب رحمة الله تعالى وأنها سبقت غضبه. Al-Imam al-Bukhari narrated this hadith, and similarly Al-Imam Muslim also mentioned this hadith. So it is a hadith fi sahihain regarding Allah making His mercy into 100 parts. 99 of them He kept, that He will show that mercy to the believers on the Day of Judgment with, and the only one part which came down to us, that is the mercy that we see between ourselves. Then Al-Imam Sa'di rahimahullah says in the Nas, وَبُرْهَانُ ذَلِكَ مَا ثَبَتَ مِنَ التَّفْصِيلَاتِ الْعَظِيمَةِ في الكتاب والسنة في إثباتها والثناء على الله بها وما ورد على وجه العموم في تنزيهه عن المثل والند والكفر والشريك. So the evidence for that, the evidence that we affirm all of the attributes to Allah, just as Allah has mentioned about Himself and what the Messenger has mentioned about Allah, the evidence that we affirm all of them, the details have been mentioned in the Quran and the Sunnah, and all of that praise upon Allah, and that Allah has mentioned He has no equal or partner or any participant or any similarity to Him. There is no partner or equal or similarity to Allah. So Allah has all of these attributes, has all of these sifat, but لَيْسَ كَمِثْلِهِ شَيْءٍ. And that ayah, لَيْسَ كَمِثْلِهِ شَيْءٍ وَهُوَ السَّمِيعُ الْبَصِيرُ, that ayah is the asl of Tawheed al-Asma'i wa Sifat. That ayah, it is the asl in Tawheed al-Asma'i was-Sifat. ليس كمثله شيء وهو السميع البصير. That is the basis, the asl in the Tawheed of al-Asma'i was-Sifat. Why? Because in that ayah there is a nafi wal-ithbat. So Allah says, ليس كمثله شيء. There is nothing comparable to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. There is nothing comparable to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Nobody equal to Him, similar to Him, resembling Him at all. But despite that, He is the all-hearing and the all-seeing. That is an affirmation of attributes to Allah. وَهُوَ السَّمِيعُ الْبَصِيرُ. It is affirming attributes to Allah. So that is saying that Allah has attributes, but they are not like the attributes of anything else. Therefore, ليس كمثله شيء رد على المشبهة. وهو السميع البصير رد على المعطلة. Because the Mu'attila reject the names and attributes of Allah. But Allah says, no, do not reject them. هو السميع, and He is al-Basir. He has the sifat. So do not be like the Mu'attila. But at the same time, do not be like the Mushabbiha. ليس كمثله شيء. There is nothing comparable to Allah. So that means you affirm and believe in the names and attributes of Allah, but without ever believing that Allah is like creation. Without ever saying that the attributes of Allah are like our attributes. You never make comparison. And we spoke about that before. If you say the word leg, how many different legs can there be? Different meanings, different descriptions. But the word is the same. So these attributes that we mention about Allah, the words are the same. Allah is the hearing and the seeing. We can hear and see. But the way Allah hears and sees, His attributes are not anything like what we have. Nothing comparable. Imagine it mentions about paradise. Fil Jannah. In paradise, ma la aynun ra'at. No eye has ever seen. ولا أذن سمعت. And no ear has ever heard. ولا خطر على بال أحد. Nobody has ever imagined. There are things in paradise you cannot imagine. No eye has seen, no ear has heard, and you cannot imagine them. But in the Quran it tells us about the fawakiha, about the different fruits of paradise. And those fruits, do we not have them now in this earth? The same names. The rumman and other different types of fruits. The pomegranates and other fruits, do we not have them now? We have them. But Allah tells us there are things in paradise that no eye has seen, no ear has heard. Nobody can imagine. Meaning that even though the names of the things in paradise might be the same as the names that we know now, the realities, they are going to be something different that we have not imagined. So if that is about paradise, then what about the creator of paradise? Then certainly we cannot imagine Allah. We cannot try to picture Allah. We cannot try to give any type of descriptions to the sifat of Allah. ولا يجوز الشيخ النجمي في الشرح يقول ولا يجوز أن تتأول الرحمة كما يفعل الأشاعرة. It is not permissible for you to make any ta'wil, interpretation, any type of your own explanation, your own interpretation about the attributes of Allah. You cannot make interpretations from yourself. just like the people of innovation did, like the Asha'irah, one of the groups from the people of innovation. بل نؤمن بأن صفات الله عز وجل لا يشبهه فيها موصوف من المخلوقين. We believe that the attributes of Allah, there is nothing in creation that resembles them. There is nothing in creation that is comparable or similar to them. كما أننا نؤمن بأن الله عز وجل ينزل إلى السماء الدنيا في الثلث الأوسط أو الثلث الأخير كل ليلة، وفي عشية عرفة نؤمن بأنه ينزل إلى السماء الدنيا فيقول هل من سائل يعطى، هل من داع يستجاب له، هل من مستغفر يغفر له حتى يتفجر الصبح. We also believe from the attributes of Allah that Allah descends in the last third of the night. Mentioned in many narrations, ينزل ربنا إلى السماء الدنيا إذا بقي ثلث الليل الأخير. That our Lord descends to the lowest heaven when the last third of the night remains. وهو حديث متواتر. It is a narration that is mentioned by multiple companions, multiple chains of narration, the asanid. So we believe that Allah descends in the last third of the night to the heaven closest to this earth and says, who is asking me and I will give him? Who is seeking forgiveness and I will forgive him? Who is repenting from a sin and I will accept his repentance? That is something which occurs certainly in the last third of the night. وَإِذَا وَصَفْنَا اللَّهَ بِالنُّزُولِ إِلَى السَّمَاءِ الدُّنْيَا فَنَحْنُ نُثْبِتُ لَهُ نُزُولًا يَلِيقُ بِجَلَالِهِ وَلَا يَجُوزُ أَن نَّقُولَ خَلَا مِنْهُ الْعَرْشُ أَمْ لَمْ يَخْلُ فإن هذا إنما يكون من صفات المخلوقين وهو يصف نفسه سبحانه وتعالى بأنه ليس كمثله شيء، فكما أن لله ذاتا لا تشبه الذوات ولا تشبهها الذوات فكذلك له صفات لا تشبه صفات المخلوقين ولا تشبهها صفات المخلوقين. When we say that Allah descends in the last third of the night to the lowest heaven, and that is proven and established in the Nuzool, we don't start talking about and saying, does that mean that Allah is no longer upon the throne and the throne is now empty when Allah comes to the lowest heaven? We don't go into that because we've already said لَيْسَ كَمِثْلِهِ شَيْءٍ. There is nothing similar to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Now when we start imagining that if Allah descends to the lowest heaven, does that mean that the throne is now empty? There is nobody on the throne now, Allah is not on the throne now. We don't imagine those things because that is comparison to how we do those things. If we descend from the chair, you descend down. Now that means the chair is empty. That's us. In the makhluk, us created like that. That doesn't mean this is how it works with Allah. When Allah descends to the lowest heaven, it doesn't mean that the throne is now empty. Because if we say that, we're only imagining it how we descend. So you don't get into that discussion. And you don't need to start talking about that. هل يخلو منه العرش أم لا? Is the throne then empty or is the throne not empty? That is not a discussion that we need to get involved with. How do we know that's not a discussion we need to get involved in really?
Sahaba didn't ask for it.
The Sahaba, don't you think they thought of this? All these things that you think of now, do you think you're smarter more intelligent than the Sahaba. Do you think the Sahaba never thought of these things first? Do you think you're the first people to think about these things? The Sahaba were more knowledgeable, much more knowledgeable, greater knowledge and understanding. Do you think this didn't come to their mind? That Allah descends to the lowest heaven, does that mean the throne is empty? Sahaba never thought of that. They would have realized. But why didn't they go to the Prophet ﷺ then and say, هل يخلو منه العرش أم لا? Why didn't they go and ask the Prophet ﷺ these things? Because they knew that this is not from our knowledge that we need to delve into. This is not something which is from the knowledge of the aqidah that we need to know. We know ليس كمثله شيء. There is nothing like Allah. So we need to affirm, نؤمن ونقر, affirm and acknowledge that Allah descends to the lowest heaven. But beyond that, we don't get into any falsafa like the people they did, and they start to say, if Allah descends in the last third of the night, and we mentioned this before, if Allah descends in the last third of the night, here in the UK, the last third of the night, maybe 4 a.m. or something till 7 a.m., the last third of the night. At 7 a.m., here sunrise, 7, 8 a.m. But at 7, 8 a.m., in another part of the world, it will be the last third of the night. When their sunrise happens, in another part of the world, it will still be their last third of the night. Somewhere in the world, it is always the last third of the night. Somewhere. Right now, somewhere in the world, it will be their last third of the night already. In the east side of the world, Australia, those places, Indonesia, Malaysia, their Maghrib happened hours and hours ago. Hours ago, 8, 9, 10 hours ago, their Maghrib finished for today. Their Isha finished for today. They are already in the middle of their night, and their Fajr is going to happen soon. So over there somewhere, the last third of the night is already happening. Always somewhere the last third of the night is happening. So now the people, the philosophers, they come with their falsafa and they start saying, okay, Allah descends in the last third of the night. But in the world, it is always the last third of the night somewhere. So does that mean Allah is always descending? And so Allah is never above the throne. This is from the falsafa, as the scholars they mentioned, as Ibn Taymiyyah mentioned, and other scholars they mentioned. Don't you think the Sahaba knew about this? They knew. They knew about the manazil, the different places of the qamar, of the shams, of how it changes and how the sunset and the sunrise in different places. They knew about this, but they didn't come to the Prophet ﷺ. What does it mean? There is always last third of the night. This is from the al-mutakallimun, those individuals from Ahlul Bid'ah wal Ahwa. They bring all of this type of philosophy to confuse you. We do not go into that. Allah has not given us knowledge of that. We affirm and we believe in the last third of the night Allah descends. So when it's your last third of the night, you get up and you pray and you make dua, knowing that in this last third of the night Allah descends and answers your dua. فنعم فلا نقول خلا منه العرش أم لم يخلو فإن هذا إنما يكون من صفات المخلوقين. That topic, it's about the creation. That is how we think about things, but we've already said we do not compare Allah to creation. وقول المؤلف رحمه الله وبرهان ذلك ما ثبت من التفصيلات العظيمة في الكتاب والسنة في إثباتها والثناء على الله بتلك الصفات وما ورد على وجه العموم بتنزيهه عن المثل والكفر والشريك، أي بأن الله عز وجل نزه نفسه عن المثل فقال ليس كمثله شيء، وكذلك الند فهو لا ند له سبحانه، وكذلك الكفر ولم يكن له كفوا أحد، وكذلك الشريك أخبر أنه لا شريك له في ملكه فقال والذين تدعون من دونه ما يملكون من قطمير، وأخبر بأنهم لا يملكون نقيرا. فهذه كلها فيها إثبات لصفات الله عز وجل وتنزيهه عن صفات المخلوقين وتوحده بصفات الألوهية التي لا يشاركه فيها أحد، وبالله التوفيق. All of these evidences in the Quran, many evidences in the Quran, Allah highlights and emphasizes to us that there is no comparison to His attributes. There is no equal or partner, or comparison or resemblance or similarity to Him. So we affirm His attributes without making any comparison. Even when you read قُلْ هُوَ اللَّهُ أَحَدٌ اللَّهُ الصَّمَدُ لَمْ يَلِدْ وَلَمْ يُولَدْ وَلَمْ يَكُنْ لَهُ كُفُوًا أَحَدٌ, that there is no equal or comparison or resemblance to Him. لَيْسَ كَمِثْلِهِ شَيْءٍ, there is nothing in comparison or resemblance to Him. So when we talk about the names and attributes of Allah, then you must remember there is never any imagination of what they are like. There is never any comparison of Allah to creation at all. That was the problem of the people of innovation. The Mu'attilah, the ones who reject the names and attributes of Allah, they said you cannot affirm the attributes of Allah. They said how? Nuzool, they said نحن ننزل. All the other things, السميع البصير, they said we have a sam', we have al-basr, we can hear, we can see, we descend. They said no, you have to free Allah of any comparison. لا بد من تنزيه الله, which is true. But then they began to go so far, they made ta'til of all of the sifat of Allah, believing that this was the only way to stop any comparison between Allah and creation. Because they said, if you say Allah has a hand, Allah has a face, Allah has eyes, then you are comparing Allah to creation. That's what they believed. So they said we have to make sure you do not compare Allah to creation, which is true. They said the only way you can make sure you don't compare Allah to creation is to say Allah doesn't have these attributes. Then you are definitely not comparing Him to creation. But Ibn Taymiyyah said, actually you have compared Allah to creation by doing this ta'til. You have compared Allah to nothingness, to Adam. They worship nothingness. So the point is, we affirm the attributes of Allah without comparing them to creation. Simple as that. Affirm the attributes of Allah without comparing them to creation. Then as-su'al as-sadis. Any questions on that one before we move on? Any questions on that one before we move on?
Some of the doubts that's spread around is that by saying that Allah is above the arsh, you're confining Him to a space.
Some people, they say that if you believe and you affirm that Allah is above the throne, then you are confining Allah to a space. That you are restricting Allah within a space. Now, for example, a person, if you say a person is over there, If He's over there, that means on that side and that side and this side and that side, He is within that space. So the space is around Him. If you say Allah is above, that means the sides and everything, all of that space is around Allah. They say, how can you say that? How can you say that Allah is within this space and the space is bigger than Allah? We're not saying that. Nobody has said that. If you say that, then it's because you don't understand. We are not making any comparison of Allah to creation. In creation, we are surrounded by the jihad. Salam. The jihad, all the directions, they are around us. I am here. The north, the south, the west, the left, the right is around me. I am surrounded by these jihad, by these sides. I am within them. But when you say Allah is above, are you saying therefore that Allah is surrounded by the other directions, by the other sides? You're not saying that. لَيْسَ كَمِثْلِهِ شَيْءٍ. There is nothing comparable to Allah. It's because they cannot get out of their minds of comparing Allah to creation. So they compare the different directions in creation to Allah. So they say Allah is above, you're saying that means the sides are covering Allah and the below is covering Allah and everything else behind and in front is covering Allah. So all of these sides and the space is bigger than Allah. Nobody ever said that. Has that ever been in the Quran and the Sunnah? Did the Sahaba and the Salaf ever say that? So we don't say that and we don't believe that. Rather we say Allah is above. We affirm that because that is something Allah affirmed for Himself. The qaida is simple. نصف الله بما وصف به نفسه أو وصفه به رسوله صلى الله عليه وسلم. We affirm to Allah what Allah affirmed for Himself or what His Messenger affirmed for Him. Any other questions?
If Allah says the heavens from the heavens to the earth belong to Allah, Allahu ma fi samawati wa ma fi al-ard, how can there be any comparison, anything in the world to Allah? How can there be any comparison? How can people say we want to compare themselves with Allah, the owner of the heavens and the earth? We're just a creation.
Absolutely. You're right. It mentions in the texts that to Allah belongs the heavens and the earth and everything within them. All of it is in the control of Allah. Allah is the creator, the Khaliq, the creator of all of the heavens and the earth. So how can you say the creator is the same as the creation? Al-Khaliq, and then this is the Makhluq. You cannot say they are the same. You're right. So the creator is obviously different to the creation. He is the mighty, the majestic, the one superior and above the creation. The creation, we are in need of our creator. We are fuqara, in need of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And that's why it mentions all of this worship we do, all of this ibadah that we do. Why do we do it? Does Allah need us to do it? Allah doesn't need us to worship Him. It doesn't benefit Allah if we worship Him. It benefits us. As for Allah, it doesn't benefit Him. Evidence? What is the dalil for that? That all of our worship and our obedience, it doesn't benefit Allah, it doesn't increase His kingdom. And if we all sin, it's not going to decrease His kingdom either. Okay, true, yes. That He is the self-sufficient who is not in need of anything. But also the hadith, we did it before in the 40 hadith of Imam al-Nawawi. You remember the narration? لو أن أولكم وآخركم وإنسكم وجنكم كانوا على أتقى قلب رجل واحد منكم ما زاد ذلك مما عندي شيء. That if all of you, from beginning to end, humans and jinn, were upon the most righteous heart of one of you, meaning all of you are pious, all of you are upon obedience, all of you are upon worship, then that would not increase the kingdom of Allah in any way. It doesn't give Allah any benefit if everybody worships Him. And at the same time, what if everybody sinned against Allah? Would that decrease the kingdom of Allah? Not at all. لو أن أولكم وآخركم وإنسكم وجنكم كانوا على أفجر قلب رجل واحد منكم. If all of you are upon the most evil heart of one of you, ما نقص ذلك مما عندي شيء. It would not decrease anything from me. It would not decrease anything from the kingdom of Allah. And then it mentions the example, إلا كما ينقص المخيط إذا أدخل البحر. A needle, when you dip it into the ocean, how much of the ocean water does the needle take out? Dip the needle in and bring it out, how much of the water has it taken out of the ocean? Nothing, nothing. So, worshipping Allah, us all worshipping Him doesn't benefit Allah, benefits us. All of us sin against Allah, not going to decrease the kingdom of Allah, it's only going to harm us. So, Allah is the creator, and we are the creation. And therefore there is no example or comparison or resemblance between them. Anything else?
I've got a question, but not really the topic.
No.
I was asking, what's Darul Islam and Darul Kufr? For example, we know Darul Islam is being followed. For example, the law of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. The question is it the Darul Islam, what is not being followed by the law of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? Are they called Darul Islam or Darul Kufr today?
So what is the difference between the land of the Muslim countries, as the people they say? What is the difference between a Muslim country, a land of Islam, and a non-Muslim country, a land that is not Islamic? How do you differentiate? When do you say something is the land of Islam? When do you say something is a Muslim country? What defines those things? Because there are people nowadays, they say there are no Muslim countries anywhere. There are people nowadays from the Khawarij and the Takfiris, they say there are no Muslim lands anywhere. None. Everywhere it is Darul Kufr. So how do you differentiate? Firstly, it does not mean, like the Khawarij and the Takfiris and their likes, they seem to think, a land of Islam, it doesn't mean that you have to have somebody like Abu Bakr as-Siddiq radiyallahu anhu as the Khalifa there. It doesn't mean that. Nobody has made that a condition. It's like the Khawarij want to believe that the land of Islam can only be if you have somebody like Abu Bakr as-Siddiq in charge. Nobody has said that. Everybody has errors, everybody has mistakes. The rulers right now, the Hukam, they have mistakes, no doubt. They have their shortcomings, they have their shortfall, they have some errors. They have that, it occurs, it happens. But does that mean their land is now a land of kufr? Some rulers now, they may allow some things to happen in their countries that are not Islamic. Some Muslim rulers, they may allow riba in their banks. Maybe. Is riba allowed? Is interest allowed? Haram. But some Muslim rulers in their Muslim countries, they let interest go in their banks, in their economy. That is something which is haram in the Sharia. So now can we say that this ruler is a kafir and that country is a kafir country, it's not a Muslim country? No. According to the Khawarij, yes. But that is false. That is incorrect. Just because there is a sin going on, or there is some opposition, some mukhalafa to the Sharia going on, that doesn't mean that this country is now a kafir country. Because now we discussed, I think, before the issue of istihlal. How do you differentiate and determine the ruling of kufr upon a person? According to the Khawarij, they want to tell you all of the Muslim rulers are kuffar because they have interest and they do this and they do that. They're kuffar, all of them. But the issue is the issue of al-istihlal. If now a Muslim ruler allows interest in his banks, does that mean he's a kafir? He's ruling by something which is against the Sharia. Interest, riba, haram. He's allowing it. So his ruling there is not the ruling of Islam. He's ruling by other than Islam. So is he a kafir?
No,
Why not?
because we have to check if he believes whether
It's the issue of al-istihlal. Does this ruler believe that his laws are superior or equal even to the laws of the Sharia? Does he believe that? Or is he doing it just because he's a sinner? He knows you shouldn't have interest, but it gives more money for his economy, for his country, makes it better for him to do business with other countries. So he does a sin and he allows the interest to carry on. If you do a sin now, does that make you a kafir? If you go to the bank and open up an account and you get greedy and you take the interest, so you've done a major sin. Have you become a kafir for doing that sin? If the ruler does the same sin, does he become a kafir? According to the Khawarij, yes. According to the Takfiris, the Hizb al-Tahrir, the Muhajirun, all these people, according to them, yes. Well, if according to them, yes, then all of the Muslims are kuffar too then. All of the Muslims who take interest in their bank accounts, they are all kuffar as well then. If you're going to apply that ruling to the ruler, that qa'idah to the ruler, then apply it to all of the Muslims too. They say the ruler, he allows interest. The ruler, he allows cinemas in his country. Cinemas where they watch the movies. So now, if a person goes now, a common person goes to the cinema, he's committed a sin. Is he a kafir? No. But the ruler, he allowed cinemas, he has to be kafir now. If he's kafir, then all of the Muslims are kuffar too. They all go to the cinema. If they are committing the sin of going to the cinema, he's committing the sin of allowing the cinema. It is all sins. It doesn't make you kafir. If you're gonna say it makes you kafir, then you've done something which the Quran and the Sunnah has not mentioned to you. So you can't start labeling all of these rulers as kuffar and labeling all of their countries as kafir countries because they have some sins going on. Yes, the sins are going on. And yes, everybody has their faults. The rulers have their faults. But that's why we've been taught to make dua for the rulers, not to make dua against the rulers. If you see some faults from them, make dua for them. Not be like the ikhwanis everywhere, but the rulers did this and the rulers did that and we can't make dua for them. Make dua against them. That is not what the Prophet ﷺ taught us, what is mentioned in the hadith. What is mentioned in the hadith, be patient even if the ruler, وَلَوْ أَخَذَ مَالَكَ وَجَلَدَ ظَهْرَكَ. Even if he takes your wealth and he whips you on your back, be patient. Don't rebel and revolt against the rulers and say they are kuffar and the countries are all kuffar. Where they are establishing Islam, they are Muslim, the population is Muslim, they have Islam, mosques, adhan, everything. It is Islamic. Now what you gonna say? Are you gonna say that Saudi Arabia is a kafir country too? Mecca and Medina are under the control of the kuffar. You are going and doing Hajj under the authorities of the kuffar, mashallah. This is the belief of the innovation, the innovators, the people of deviation. Yes, they have faults. Everybody has faults. They have mistakes. Everybody has mistakes. Saudi Arabia, all the countries, they have mistakes. But have those mistakes made them kuffar? No. That is from the way of the Khawarij. They are the ones who want to tell you they're kuffar and rebel and revolt and do the revolution against them and remove these rulers and put new ones there. And what's their solution? These Khawarij, their solution, mashallah, ISIS. And Abu Bakr, their Khalifa. This is their Islamic, the land of Islam as far as they're concerned. It is the land of the Khawarij. The land of the Khawarij, the ones the Prophet ﷺ mentioned are kilabun nar. That is what they think Islam is. When they kill the Muslims and spill the blood of men, women, children, innocent, Muslim, non-Muslim, they think that is the teachings of the Prophet ﷺ and that is the land of Islam. That is the land of the Khawarij. But these Muslim countries are Muslim countries where there are Muslim rulers and there is Islam there is Adhan, there is prayer. They are Muslim countries. So do not fall into this way of the Khawarij, labeling all of the rulers as kuffar because they've done mistakes. We all make mistakes. If you're going to say the rulers are kuffar for those mistakes they made, then all of the Muslims are kuffar, your families are kuffar. Everybody makes mistakes. You're not going to start saying everybody's a kafir. So do not fall into that way of the Khawarij. We're going to have to round off. The prayer is here. We'll carry on next week inshallah at 5:30 p.m. with the next question 6 I think. Inshallah ta'ala. Wa sallallahu ala nabiyyina Muhammad wa ala